If you're confused as to why agriculture is such a big problem that can lead to war, yet so fundamental at the same time, stay until the end and not only will you understand this gigantic issue a bit better, but you'll also leave with some inspiring ideas and information to start envisioning a better food and ecosystem. This is part 2 of this episode, so make sure to check out part 1 to understand the context and the core issue of agriculture.
Agriculture this year is in really, really bad shape in the United States. Farmers are in a very horrible predicament. Your audience needs to understand we created that. All of us, not just the farmer, but society as a whole.
How do you get the food you put into your body? Today we're talking about agriculture. It's the basis of our civilization and it's at the intersection of many aspects of our ecosystem and our human lives. So if we do agriculture wrong, we really do everything wrong. Historically, famines and agricultural issues have contributed to all kinds of conflicts, like the emergence of wars and even the extinction of civilizations. And right now, we're not doing great in terms of agriculture. The good news is, if we get better at that, we get better at everything else too. That's actually what drove me to study agronomy, because it's really all-encompassing and impactful on so many levels, starting with food security. So let's talk to agronomist and soil health expert Ray Archuleta, who teaches farmers not only how to work, but also take care of the land, to understand what we're doing wrong and how we can improve to make sure that agriculture doesn't take away from people's safety and freedom, but actually enhances it. Okay, let's dive in, but first some important information for new listeners. Feel free to skip about a minute if you've heard it before. Do you ever feel like every important conversation turns into just another petty debate and that we deserve better? Well, welcome to Make Sense, the show where I, singer-songwriter Leïla Six, interview people with super relevant and important insight to put our ideologies aside and make the most efficient decisions to build societies that actually make sense based on our shared values. I believe these are freedom and safety, which for humans comes from community. And by the way, whether you look at it scientifically or spiritually, community includes the entire planet. But these values can sometimes be a bit conflicting, which is tricky. So how can we shape a world that's both safe and exciting for everyone and on the largest scale possible? Well, that's a tough question and an ambitious goal, and it would be easy to get cynical about it and just say, well, the world's unfair, so I'll fight for my share and F the rest. But I don't want to do that, and I'm sure you don't either. So we need to understand topics that are fundamental to how the world works, complex topics that require our attention if we want to stay true to our values. Now, I tell all of my guests that I only want to have constructive, snark-free conversations here because I want everyone to feel welcome to learn, feel, and grow. So I'll ask the same of you in the comment section. Now, all that's been said, let's use our senses to make sense of the world and create more sensible societies. I know, it's too much wordplay, but I had to.
Let my breath brush your ears. Inhale these words. May they fill your lungs and the atmosphere.
We've been talking about all the negative stuff, the harmful practices and all of that, but fortunately agriculture does not have to be this way. It didn't used to be this way. And there are a lot of different ways of doing agriculture that show us that we can not only grow food efficiently, but also even help restore the ecosystem that we've been damaging. So I'm thinking about organic farming, regenerative agriculture, conservation agriculture, agroforestry, agroecology in general. So yeah, these are very hopeful paths forward. And we don't need to get too technical here because I'm assuming most of the people who will listen to this are not agronomists and are not necessarily super interested in becoming agronomists. But can you maybe mention a couple of key, better, or at least more sustainable practices that are widely accepted and recommended by these different schools, or practices that you promote?
So regenerative agriculture rotates. And we grow multi-species cover crops at the end of the season. So we might grow 10 or 12 species. We're trying to bring life back into the natural system. And so the more diversity, the better it works. Humans, plants, animals, insects, viruses, bacteria, diversity. That's the software of the planet. So regenerative agriculture brings that back into the system. Less tillage. So what is a no-till drill? It's a no-till planter, no-till drill, where you plant cover crop, you plant mixes. Intercropping, where you're growing corn or soybean, you're planting another crop right next to it. there's more. Another one is growing is um, vermiculture, where we're using large amounts of vermiculture earthworms, where we capture the excrement, the liquids coming from that process as earthworms make and process them. They're rich in protozoa, bacteria, and we're using all those liquids. We call it living biological amendments, where you're putting them on the roots, we're putting it on the seed, we're spraying it on the plants, and it's helping nutrient cycling, suppressing disease. We're getting away from Roundup. We're getting away from GMO. We're going to back to non-GMO seed because they yield better. Um, and so it's shifting. The whole landscape is going more into diversity, diversity,
Hmm.
diversity, diversity.
Something we never think about, but hedgerows, like just
Yeah,
adding
absolutely.
hedgerows.
Yeah, we call them buffer strips. You call them hedgerows. We call them buffer strips where you can, they're called catch crops also, where you grow these beautiful flowers at the edge of the fields. Absolutely, and help the biology. Because I think the honest needs to know there's 1,700 beneficial insects for every one pest. So nature's self-healing, self-organizing, self-regulating. She'll take care of herself if we give her space.
Like I said in part one, we're talking about crops here, but this 100% applies to meat and dairy production too, because the vast majority of crop production is actually used to feed cattle. So this is not a vegetable issue.
So I think there's a lot of cool practices. But these practices have been around for a long time. They just never
Yes.
been they just never been accepted in a large scale because of ignorance.
Yeah, I
Ignorance when
really
I went, yeah,
appreciate you highlighting that they're not new or innovative or anything like that. They're just like the way we used to do things, and with
yeah,
the Green Revolution basically just made everything chemical. um,
we dumbed it down. Let's just be brutally
yeah.
honest. We made it,
Yes.
we dumbed down. See, I think farmers and ranchers are supposed to be the most intelligent of the whole of society because why? Because they have to be the skill set to be a farmer and rancher is incredible. You have to be an ecologist, you have to be a microbiologist, you have to be an engineer, you have to be a machinist, a chemical engineer, you have to be a veterinarian. Uh, can you tell me something the farmer has not to do? He has to do everything. So farming is complex, but we talk about farmers and ranchers like this. I hate this. We say these, and I hate when farmers say, "I'm just a farmer." It's almost because we worship the fact that people that get PhDs, doctors, engineers, lawyers, but actually farming is the most complex of them all. I don't think people understand the what it takes to be a farmer. It is very difficult. The skill set is incredible.
Yeah, it is. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about agriculture, because it's so central to everything, and it's so hidden because of the way we build societies and cities, and just like, and with huge farms that are more and more huge all the time. Like
Yeah.
they need to be isolated from where most people live. So yeah, it's easy to not even think about that, and forget that it takes so much work. Time for a little song that reminds us that even though we don't see it up close, we are made of things that come from the soil and will go back to the soil to feed future living beings. This is just a snippet of my song Just Like a Leaf, but stay until the end of the episode to listen to the rest of it, or find it on any music platform.
You know that I fear decay and what it means for me. But now I see that this cruel fate is also the stage of a beautiful story. 'Cause I'll be gone and it's alright.
Now, I don't know if you've heard about that, but geoengineering, which was originally used in warfare, is often presented as a solution for agriculture. So I asked Ray what he thought about that.
It was kind of interesting how geoengineering is for the people that don't realize what it is. It's kind of you spray a substance and you put it in the airplane, and you use these substances. Like for example, one of them is called silver iodide, and it's very common. That's the most common used in the United States. The idea is spraying it and creating a nucleotide and creating raindrops to fall, and so stimulating more rain. So that's the concept. My thought is, the idea is stupid. Personally, I think it's a stupid idea. Using substances and you're spraying this material all over the place, and you're spending millions and millions of dollars and fixing nothing. You're not getting to the cause, and I'll tell you why I hate it, because it's approaching nature incorrectly. My goal would be is, what if we do something more beautiful and cheaper than that, and actually more effective? Why don't we cover the soil? Why don't we start bringing trees and the things you just talked about, and about bringing vegetation and cover the ground, and paying farmers to cover the ground, make the soil healthy, improve the bee populations, because we're losing 80% of our bees in the United States, bringing more insects, plant it, cover it. Why don't we help agriculture heal itself? And then also, let's allow animals to graze throughout the West and mimic the buffalo. Why don't we just do biomimicry, mimic life, mimic the natural system? We'll fix the problem. And let's start putting more forests. Let's start planting. Let's do that instead of this ridiculousness of seeding the clouds. See, that's how detached we are, making very bad decisions and then putting toxic material all over. And even if it's in low amounts, it's just dumb. And I'll be very vocal about it. It's stupid.
I think even if I don't know anything about the science behind it, so I don't know if it would be toxic. Like I have no idea about that. But just like philosophically, I think it's a very poorly thought out solution because like you said, it is detached. Like if anything, if this ecological crisis that we're all going through, if we should learn anything from that, it is to be less detached. And it seems like a lot of people are open to spending, and that's another aspect I was going to say. They're open to spending so much money in something that's even more detached. Why? So yeah, I wanted to have your opinion on this because I had never heard you talk about that directly. So yeah, I was curious, and I must say I'm not so surprised you're not in favor of that.
Well, here's the thing: is like nature wants to be look. I tell farmers, if you remember when you were dating, if you approached your girlfriend in the wrong way, you wouldn't be married. Nature wants to be approached the right way too. She doesn't want you to come in with your chemistry. She doesn't want you to come in with your ideas. She wants you to approach her with mimic it. She's telling you every day the design, the creator has it set up. Follow the patterns of the forest and the prairie and the ground. Diversity, diversity. Follow the patterns. It's pretty simple. Mimic our grazing should mimic the natural grazing system. So I think what happens is when we approach our problems from our own thought process, we always fail. It never works. Even cities now, we're realizing if we bring more vegetation, more trees, bring more beauty to the cities, oh, guess what? Crime goes down. That's why the website called Biomimicry Institute. So your audience can go on and check it out. And it has this little tagline that says, ask nature. How humble. Think that little word, ask nature. Geoengineering is a stupid approach. It doesn't fix the problem. It doesn't, and by the way, it's only like 5 to 10 to 15% effective. It's all over the board. So it's not very effective. It's expensive, and you're spraying crap all over the place.
Yeah.
What an idea, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a big supporter of it. I'm not going to spend my money on that, and so I'm I could be very controversial, but I'm sorry. I have limited time and I want to make a huge difference. We want to make a huge difference. Like you doing this podcast is making a difference. We want the
Mine
land to be
too.
healed, right?
Yeah, definitely. I'm curious, do you in the US have something like the European Common Agricultural Policy? It's this package of measures which translate into practices for day-to-day agriculture that farmers can apply, and either they will get bonuses like points, or
Uh,
doing such and such other
yeah,
more negative practice will take away some points, and the more points you have, I'm summing it up very broadly here, but the more points you have, the more subsidies you can get.
yeah.
But yeah, do you have something like that in the US? Or because in France, in Europe in general, of course it's a European thing, uh, there's a strong emphasis on that, and it's not perfect at all. There's still
Yeah.
a lot of chemical lobbying, like I'm not saying that's a perfect world at all, but there is a strong will to encourage farmers to do that. The problem is that in the end, the subsidies are not enough, or they come in late, so it doesn't help. Like they can't cover the costs of doing such improvements. So yeah, I just wanted to know if you have a similar program in the US.
Well, they do. There are conservation programs. Yes. The agency I used to work used to be called uh, NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Service, USDA, and we would give conservation. If you go to no-till and you do less tillage, yes, they would help pay for that. They would pay for center pivots. They would do. Uh, they would pay for terraces, all those kind of things that would help in conservation indirectly. And then they do crop insurance. And then just in the last 15 years, they start paying for cover crops. So they do, but not enough. And it's not. And I have issues with it because um, sometimes the farmers will do it just for the money, not for the stewardship benefits and not for the right attitude. And I think what happens is all comes back to education. And I've always had issues is why are we paying farmers money if they're not required to come to a school where we teach them that the soil is alive and we can teach them how to back off chemicals and fertilizer? I always had a struggle with that. And and it doesn't build dignity to the producer. So what I always thought is, okay, if we're going to give you thousands and thousands of dollars, we want to make sure you come to school to learn regenerative agriculture, to understand how the soil works and understand it's alive, and then help you get away from some of these inputs. The reason I've been so busy is I help farmers get away from fertilizer and chemicals and pesticides because they're expensive. Our farmers are
Absolutely, yeah.
going broke and
Mm.
they're hurting. Agriculture this year is in really, really bad shape in the United States. And in some states you might lose 20 to 40% of the farmers. It's not beautiful this year. The farmers are in a very strong, they're in a horrible predicament. And I think your audience needs to understand we created that. All of us, not just the farmer, but society as a whole. Nobody wants to work in the farm. Everybody wants to live in the city. They want to have their espresso coffee with them and yet eat, and they want it cheap, and they want to do all these things, but yet nobody was willing to go work on the farm. So we created this in the United States in the last 60, 70 years. But back to your point, do we have conservation programs? Yes. Do we have crop insurance that the government pays 70%? Yes. But are we as effective as we could be? No. Is it as quick as I wish I could have it? No. If
Yeah,
it was up to me, yeah, same thing
same
in
in
Europe.
Europe. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
If it was
Absolutely.
up to me, I would pay not for carbon. I would pay farmers $100 an acre, and it would help the farmers survive. But then we would bring for diverse cover crops. Then we would help the insect populations. We would help the climate because we would cool the soil surface. We would attract the rain. We would help and save the bees. And then have tiers said, okay, if you back off fungicide and insecticide, we'll even give you more. But it's going to take years. This is not going to overcome overnight. We've destroyed the planet the last 100, 200, 300 years, 1,000 years. It's not going to overcome overnight. So we have to be I think we have to be patient, and we have to be very careful how we look at farmers. It's easy to judge farmers. I'm a farmer. I have 100, I have 66 hectares, and I'm a grazer, but I don't use chemicals. I don't want to use them. But you have to you have to teach the producer first. I think we have to be very
Yeah,
careful about that.
definitely. All right, just before we finish this interview, I do want to acknowledge and ask you about a big challenge regarding sustainable agriculture, because in some territories where the shift to sustainable practices was too abrupt, famine became a real problem. So if we want to do it right, it can be a long process depending on like I was saying before, on the area's climate, the type of production and crops, the type of soil, just like so many factors. And it does take time to figure out the right technique, or even just for the soil to start working better again, especially if it's very impoverished.
Yep.
So for example, the farmer I did one of my internships with when I was studying agronomy, he practices conservation agriculture, and 6 years in, he was still using a lot of herbicides because he couldn't manage some specific weeds. So my last question is, how can we plan for smooth transition, but also act fast to stop eroding the soil and damaging our capacity to feed ourselves and just our habitat in general? That's
Thank
a
you.
tough one, I guess.
No, I think actually you're concluding with a beautiful question. And I think this is what concerns me a lot when governments don't know how they do things and how they approach them. No, also not just governments, but environmental groups. They don't realize if you've never helped a farmer back off chemicals and fertilizer or save, you can destroy agriculture if you're not careful. Let me give you an example. Sri Lanka, they wanted to go organic. It was a beautiful goal, but the soil wasn't ready. When soils are degraded for so long, the soil food web is not intact, and it takes years to bring it back, 3 to 5 at the minimum, and you have to be very intentional. Well, Sri Lanka got rid of chemical fertilizer, started cutting it way back. People went hungry. We have to be very careful how we do business. We have to thoughtfully help producers and back them off these inputs. It does not happen overnight. When the soil becomes healthier and healthier, the weed population shifts. So when we start bringing more fungal and we start bringing more cover crops, we start doing more no-till, we have less and less of the pernicious weeds, and the weed population shift. We now know how to roll cover crops down. We smother them. We call them smother crops, so it allows less weeds, and you can almost go organic. We can reduce the chemistry by quite a bit, but you have to do these couple of things. One, we have to educate the farmer how the soil works. We have to educate the grade school kids, the high school kids, everybody. Our politicians need to be educated. Education, 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 education. But it doesn't sound sexy. People don't want to hear that. And so we've started educating our producers, so the movement starts to growing. And the best university to go to is YouTube University. YouTube, and type regenerative agriculture. And you'll see some of the speakers like myself or many other ones better than myself teaching these principles and concepts. So that's how we're going to back off and how we're going to transition. We can change the water cycle in the soil in 1 year to start infiltrating by covers. 3 to 5 years, we can start cutting off on fertilizer. So that's how we're going to do it. Education and help farmers and help them hold their hands for the first 3 to 5 years. Farmers need help, and they need help financially, but technically, but it can be done for free. It's not welfare. They have to have skin in the game too. They have to come to classes in schools so we can help them out.
All right. Well, I know you're already doing that, so that's great. I mean,
we're already doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me just add one more point for the
Yeah.
for people in the future. And I think we need to leave in this way because I think you said something very important. Look, if you would ask me 40 years ago, I was in my early 40s, I had no hope for agriculture. None. None. I was already about 20 years into my government career working as a agronomist and soil health specialist. I had no hope. Farmers were going broke and the water was still polluted. Now I have hope. I have hope. I have hope for the future for young people. Young people really care about the planet more than my generation. I'm a baby boomer. I see your generation really care about food. They care about the future. They care about the planet. I see a great movement happening and it's going globally. The problem is we watch way too much TV. The world's going to end. The planet's going to burn up. I said that's ridiculous and a stupid thought process. Let me give you an example. Chernobyl. The scientists told us there was never thing going to be grown. Now they found a fungi inside the core of Chernobyl that eats radiation. So I want to leave the audience with hope. I have a lot of hope. We're going to heal agriculture and you be involved. The way you buy food, the way you support farmers makes a big difference. It makes a difference. So every time you go grow a garden, you're helping. Every time you take a walk using your bike instead of driving the vehicle, you're helping. Everybody helps. So thank you again for having me on your podcast, and thank you for what you do, and you're making a difference.
Okay, so we know where the problems come from. So practices like monoculture, systematic tillage, and chemicals that cause chronic stress to the soil, water systems, and biodiversity, to name a few. We also know some solutions, like limiting these practices in favor of ones that mimic nature more. So using cover crops to protect the soil, rotating crops to bring more life, planting legumes crops to bring nitrogen into the soil, which helps reduce chemical fertilizers for the next crop. There are so many small and bigger things farmers can do to improve the way we do agriculture. But that requires time because the first harvests may not be so profitable, and money because farmers will most likely need to invest in new equipment, infrastructure, and systems. And a lot of them are already in debt. And it wouldn't be fair to put that entire burden on them anyway. Agriculture is probably the most collective thing. So we really have to collectively support strong policies that make it more efficient and helpful to support society and farmers. For example, financial incentives for farmers to make that change. Farmers should be well compensated for serving society by growing our food, which is one of the very few things we actually need to survive. And they should be rewarded even more if they take care of our ecosystem for us. So one thing I think would be especially efficient would be to put a cost on negative externalities, so on negative environmental and health impacts. This way, the products made using harmful practices would become more expensive, demand for better products would increase, making them cheaper. Everybody, companies, and regular people alike would be financially incentivized towards a healthier agriculture and food system. I'm oversimplifying it, but to me, this is part of how we build societies that actually make sense. We could also have a label or something similar to the Nutri-Score in France that would highlight not products that are better for you, like the organic food label, but rather the worst products, like a label that would say conducive to poor health. That would be cool. And you might be wondering what agriculture and the ecosystem have to do with war, which I mentioned in the introduction. Well, now that you understand how agriculture affects our ecosystem, which affects our capacity to fulfill such basic needs as nutrition and hydration, imagine you're a country that's no longer producing enough food for everyone. What do? If you have economic power, you can import food, but depending on your population size, you may need to threaten other countries to force them to sell you some of their production. And if that doesn't work, you can go to war to get better land or better water resources. If you don't have that kind of power, your citizens might get tired of going hungry and start an uprising, which has happened and contributed to major conflicts in the world. There's more to all of this, but I think it's enough for today, enough to understand that agriculture plays a major role in our capacity to experience the safety that we all need, which comes in the shape of health, with clean water and nutritious food that don't make us sick, in the shape of food security and sovereignty, and in the shape of more environmental and geopolitical stability. And that sense of safety makes space for freedom, to make plans for a healthy and promising future, and freedom from invaders looking for new land to exploit. And I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty important to me. Now, movie time. If you want to watch a movie about this topic, I suggest The Grapes of Wrath, which I must admit I haven't seen or read. For a more sci-fi option, Interstellar. Both take place during a time of agricultural issues due to poor soil. The Grapes of Wrath takes place during the Dust Bowl, which happened in the US partly because of farming conditions that didn't protect the soil from wind erosion. Sorry, I meant to say farming practices here, so farming practices that didn't protect the soil. When dust storms happened, people were not prepared, and it had disastrous consequences on human lives like food scarcity and forced migration. And in Interstellar, people have to migrate to another planet to be able to grow food, so I feel like these movies are good agricultural cautionary tales. If you have more movie recommendations about this topic, please leave a comment. Okay, that's it for today, but before I leave you with some extra information and the song you heard today at the end of this episode, you can find Ray on his website, raythesoilguy.life. I hope you got some valuable insights from this episode, and if you want to learn more from my guests, you'll find everything you need in the show notes. I, for one, thank you for your attention. I know you could have been watching or listening to a billion other things, and I'm glad you picked this one. Now, 3 things before I leave you. Number 1, if you liked the music you heard today, you should look me up on the music platform you use. There will also be a link in the show notes to help you find me on there. Number 2, if you want to help me make the internet a place for more constructive and nuanced conversations, you can subscribe, like the episode, share it, and leave a comment or review depending on where you're listening to this. And number 3, you can also subscribe to my free Patreon, to my free newsletter Night Sky, and follow me on Instagram or TikTok to understand a bit better the messages behind my songs. Again, everything will be in the show notes. All right, thank you, take care, and keep trying to make sense.